What are quantum resonance fields, and how do you deal with them, and how are they showing up? You know, well, people, like some of you know because you've heard me talk before, but many people don't know, is that I actually quit school at 13 years old. Not officially, but definitely unofficially. What I mean by that is I was definitely checked out by 13, 14. At 14 and a half, I had this meeting with a school counselor who asked me, you probably had one of those people yourself, who asked me, what do you want to do when you leave school? And my answer was, I want to be an artist. That's what I want to be. I want to be an artist. And I was an artist. I was already doing art. I was already had my art up. It was already in galleries. I was doing, pretty great with those kinds of things. I had paintings and sculpture and all kinds of cool stuff going on. And this career counselor said to me, what do you want to be? I said, an artist. And the career counselor said to me, forget about it. Forget about it. Great, thanks. Great. Forget about it. 1 in 100 make it, and 1 in 100 of those make any money at it. Find something else. Now you can imagine, I'm a kid. I was devastated by this news because basically that person has gone pop and popped the balloon of my desire and taken it all away from me. And I was a kid, so I was listening to the influence of the authority. And so I quit the idea, and I went to my mom, and I remember being very upset, and she says, well, you can still be an artist, but artists don't always paint. They do other things, right? They do other things. There's other kinds of ways to do art. Hi, Michael. Thanks for joining us. So what are you going to do? Okay, so I didn't know. I didn't know how to be an artist. And I ended up in a completely other career that brought out my artistic endeavors, but certainly pulled me away from anything that was academic, because I never felt like I fit in the world of academics. I never felt like I understood what was going on at school. To be honest with you, it took me a long time to realize I was just freaking bored out of my mind, and that world and that way of learning didn't work for me. It wasn't who I was. It wasn't what was right for me. And the problem with the educational system is, in fact, that it has a way of teaching, and we don't have a way of learning. Human beings learn in a variety of different ways, and there's a problem with that is many of our children, many of us as adults, when we were children, we got labeled and classified as something being wrong with us, when in fact there was something wrong with the educational system as it was. I'm telling you all this for a simple reason, that I want you to grasp something that I did not think the way I was educated to think. I was never any good at remembering facts so that I could regurgitate facts, which is actually the Prussian system of learning, which you actually, if you went to school in the First World, then you actually did learn through the Prussian system of learning. And the Prussian system, educational system, was designed to help you to learn and regurgitate, to memorize and regurgitate, so that you'd be good at repeating information and following frickin' rules. That was what it was designed for. So if you were a high creative, if you were a rebel, you were labeled, you were made wrong, you were made deficient in some shape or form. Later on, many years later on, I definitely pursued an education, but I definitely pursued a very non-traditional education when I left school. As some of you know, I traveled the world to study with great teachers and learned all kinds of amazing things, and eventually even went on to get some academic education. And I remember sitting with a professor. I was wanting to write a thesis, a dissertation actually, and sitting with this professor, and because I wanted to write about personal emotional quantum resonance fields. Now, that sounds like a lot, and it kind of is, but it has a lot of simplicity to it. It's beautiful simplicity from my point of view. And I remember sitting with that prof who said to me, you can't do that. And I said, what do you mean? I can't write a dissertation on personal emotional resonance fields. Why the hell not? And he said, because there's no background in it. what do you mean? Isn't that the point of writing a high-level thesis dissertation, is that you are exploring new areas? Oh, no, he says, that's not how it works. You can only write a thesis, a dissertation, based on the information that already exists. You can add to it a little, you can push the envelope a little, but you can't write anything that's brand new because there's nothing to support that. What? So, really, in the traditional educational system, you're not allowed to put anything forward that is actually cutting edge, anything that is outside of the realm of what we presently know. How did we ever evolve? How do we even evolve our education system? It's so bloody frustrating because you've got to kind of follow the model. Crazy stuff. I did do a ton of research and found out a bunch of peripherally supportive ideas for where I was going. They weren't truly foundational, but peripherally, and was able to work with and get research from people like Dr. Bruce Lipton, who is phenomenal. If you haven't read his stuff, The Biology of Belief, get it. There was his work, and there was work of many other great researchers that I did tap into. And by the way, Bruce Lipton, terrific guy. When I was doing that work, when I was doing that research, I actually reached out to Bruce and said to him, this is what I'm working on, this is the thesis I'm working on. You know what the guy did? He sent me his entire keynote on the biology of belief. And oh, here, go, use this, see if this helps you. Fantastic, like no attachment, just completely here, you're free to do it, which was wonderful, very generous. Anyway, so I did eventually write this dissertation on personal emotional quantum resonance fields. PERF. Personal emotional quantum resonance fields. And so I was able to show and demonstrate and how you, me, each of us have a personal energy field. It's not some woo new age crapola. It's not even The Secret. This is physics. This is a quantum physical response. That we are interacting with the world via this field, and the world is interacting with us through that field. And everything that's happening to you is coming to you via that field. It is your filter and it is your projection. It is both going both ways. So you think of it like this, when you look at the world, you're not actually seeing the world. What you're actually seeing is a projection screen that you project onto. You just the whole world is a projection screen that you project onto. I'll tell you where that comes from in a minute, but you project onto that. Now what's coming at you is coming through this filter, which pushes stuff away. The mind is this deletion machine. It's constantly delete, 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 delete. It's throwing out anything that doesn't fit inside of the framework of what it is that you already believe. Kind of like the educational system. It's throwing out shit constantly rather than keeping stuff fresh and letting new stuff in and letting us explore and expand, because we're getting billions of bits of information every single day, every single hour, every single minute. There's hundreds of thousands of bits of information that are flowing into you that we just can't cope. The problem is we're throwing out a lot of the good stuff along with the stuff that is, that we don't need. So, you don't need to actually know how many times your heart's beating every minute unless you're actually measuring it. But the rest of the time, you don't need it. So your mind filters that information out. But it actually is there. You can actually tap into it. So your personal emotional quantum resonance field is the projector that you put into the world, and it is the filter by which you see the world, by which you allow stuff in. Now, it determines, by virtue of it being the filter, it determines what comes in, and it determines what goes out. So you have all this kind of thoughts about, I'd like to have this, I want to have that in my life, I want to have a loving relationship, I want a soulmate, I want a great job or a great career, or I want to get that role, or I want to get that position, or whatever it is. and you want those things in your life, but you find that they're not happening, yet it happens very easily for somebody else. It's because of what's in your field. It's determined by what's in your field. So grasping that for a minute, let's sort of put that to the side and come to a central piece of who you are and what your energy is. I want you to think of yourself as a tank that is filled with energy. Okay? Think of yourself as that tank filled with energy. And my question to you is this: where is your energy leaking? Where does your energy leak out? What is the kinds of things that create a leak in the energy field for you? So, obvious stuff like stress. Maybe you got some money stress going on. That will create an energy leak. That is going to determine that, you're going to feel a little like wound down by being financially stressed, or if you're, whatever it is, stress creates a leak. So here's the thing: where are you leaking energy? Because where you're leaking energy is where you're allowing things into your field that suck energy out of your tank. So if you have relationships going on in your life right now, I promise you, right now, relationships going on in your life that suck energy out of you. And you have them because, it's my dad. What am I supposed to do? It's my dad. It's your mom. Oh, I realize, but after all, it's my mother. I mean, she gave birth to me. I should be tolerant, patient, etc. It's my sibling. What are you going to do? It's your brother, it's your sister, it's your aunt, it's your uncle, it's your grandpa. Oh, well, what am I going to do? It's my boss. What am I going to do? It's the person I work with. What am I going to do? It's, we've always got these bloody excuses for having toxic relationships in our lives. And we've got to get past that, because each one of those is leaking energy out that keeps you whole. So the place you've got to go to first is this. This is a very simple way for you to get a sense of this, is this. When you interact with somebody, whoever it is, so could be your life partner, could be your brother, sister, mother, father, uncle, aunt, granddad, boss, co-worker, friend. Friends. Oh, there's a sweet one. Friends. Let's come to that and then we'll come back to this. Friends. How do you know somebody's your friend? How do you know? People will say, well, we've been friends for a long time. So time? That's how you know somebody's your friend? Have you known some people for a long time? They're definitely not your friends? Of course. Well, what is it then? Is it trust? Absolutely it's trust. Is it sharing? Absolutely it's sharing. Now, how many people do you have in your life who you officially are friends with, who you don't really trust? And you go, but I do trust them. I go, no. Do you really trust them? Would you trust them with something that is vital? Would you trust them with a secret? Can you trust them with a secret? Are they trustworthy? Is there a reciprocity in sharing? Is there an openness? Because that's friendship. Friendship is reciprocal. So here's the thing. Remember I said, we're going to come back to it. When you're interacting with any of those people, including friends, you need to ask yourself these simple questions. When I'm with X, whoever X is, mom, dad, uncle, sister, and friend, whoever it is, when I'm with that person and I walk away, in general, so not just on one occasion, but in general, do I walk away feeling about the same as I went in? Energetically, yeah, I was kind of good going in and I was kind of good coming out. Okay, we call that neutral. Do I leave kind of neutral? Generally, okay? Ask, when I'm with this person, whoever it is, do I leave feeling depleted? Do I feel a little bit less than? Do I feel like a little bit heavier, maybe a little bit more tired, a little bit more energy sort of drained away? What do you feel when you walk away? Do you feel like there was a little less of you available to you after you'd had that interaction? Again, generally. Thirdly, when you interact with X person, do you walk away feeling better? Do you feel like you both feel better? Do you feel like you both were kind of uplifted by that conversation, by that interaction, that there was a certain amount of sharing, a certain amount of something that happened that allowed you to feel even better, and that generally in your interactions, that's how you feel? This is the simple way to measure whether you need to have, whether you should be having the kinds of relationships you're having and who you're having them with. So we take out the classification of, well, this is a friend and it's somebody I've known for 20 years. Who gives a shit? Well, this is my mom, my dad, my sibling, my family member. Who gives a shit? This is my boss, my coworker. Who gives a shit? And I'll tell you why who gives a shit. Because if you are leaving those relationships with those people and every time you walk away, you are depleted, it's costing you a little piece of your soul every single interaction. Every time, it's costing you a little bit of your soul. So you've got to really take account. You are responsible, not them, you. See, if you walk into the relationship and you go, they're a real downer, and no. You are tolerating that. You're putting up with that. You're letting that happen. You've got to make the decision that you're worthy of something better. Because here's the thing, all your relationships are going to have moments of each. The people that you love and who are tremendous in your life, sometimes they're just in the shit and you're with them and you really want to help them and you walk away feeling a bit drained. It's okay if it happens occasionally. Most of the relationships you have, they're probably going to leave you fairly neutral. And I think that those can potentially have a lot more damage because they're so sort of subtle. There's an energy leak with them, but it's so subtle that you don't even notice until you're freaking drained. What you want is relationships that are synergistic, where one and one come together and it doesn't create two, it creates 11. And it's like, both of you walk away feeling better, more like something came alive within both of you. The interaction between the two of you triggered something tremendous, and you can now think in a way you never thought before. You can feel at a deeper level than you could feel before. That your heart, your soul, your mind are all engaged together. Boom, 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 and there's a greater expanse of who you were and who you are now, and that both of you have that. And if your interactions with people need to be broken into those three categories, again, as a generalization. So if you generally feel walking away that you feel better, more involved, more expansive, those are the relationships you want to have. Now, let me just say to you that many of those relationships, when you go into them, they feel a little intimidating because they're going to challenge the shit out of you. They're going to push you beyond your capacity, beyond what you're comfortable with. They're going to shove you outside of your comfort zone. They're going to ask you to be more, think more, be more expansive in every way. Be more in touch with your heart, with your soul, to tear open the rigidity and break down the barriers of your mind. That's what they're going to do. Those are the relationships that are going to do that. Now, what most of us go, I'm afraid, I'm not comfortable with this conversation. Get over it. That's the one that's going to really light you on fire. That's the one that's going to put you in touch with your soul. Those are the conversations that can do amazing things for you. Those are the relationships that can be expansive and really give you what it is that you're actually looking for. So this is what I want you to grasp. Those are the relationships you want to have, but they are going to be uncomfortable at first. I suggest that you really take a look at the relationships that are neutral. Because why are you having them? The white bread relationships, why are you having them? Are you having them to validate yourself? Are you having them to tell yourself you're okay? Are you having them so that you can compare yourself to others and say, things are not that bad for me? Take a look. And then take a look at the relationships that drain you. Take a look at the relationships you're having with people who are emotional vampires. They just suck the life right out of you. They're sucking a piece of your soul. But here's the thing, again, it's not their fault. It's yours. You have to take accountability and responsibility for having relationships with emotional vampires, because it's not like you don't know. So stop bullshitting yourself. You know that every interaction with that person sucks a little bit of life out of you, and you go back into it, you knew. You have to take responsibility for that. And I get that it's hard, because sometimes those are people who you are connected to by time. Sometimes they're people connected to you by blood or by some other thing that creates this emotional debt or this moral debt. But you've got to grasp that that doesn't serve who you actually are. It doesn't serve you stepping in to the magnificence of your heart, soul, and mind connected to the expanse of who you can possibly be, so that you can dance in the universe from a place that is so expansive, so that when things are in front of you, you don't see them the way you saw them before. You see them differently. You can't afford emotional vampires, no matter how they're related to you. So I want to challenge you to stay curious about the relationships you're having, because every one of them you're attracting to you through your quantum resonance field. Every single one of them, including the one with the vampires. So you say, well, then there's something wrong with me. No, there's nothing wrong with you. You just got to look and go, that doesn't work for me. I don't want that. It's attracted to you because it's at some level familiar. If you've got an emotional vampire in your life, it isn't the first one. You've had many of them. And you've got to make a decision to not have them anymore. So yeah, you've attracted it into your life. But guess what? So what? Have you never walked into a restaurant and they had food you don't want? You don't have to eat it. You get a choice. That's how it is with the people that show up in your life. You get a choice. So this is Dov Baron, FullMontyLeadership.com, challenging you to stay curious about the relationships you're having. Are they draining you, emotional vampires? Are they neutral, so they feed your identity, tell you you're all right? Or are they synergistic? Do they set your heart, your soul, your mind on fire and let you expand into the vastness of the universe and grasp the difference that you can make? You are far greater than shitty relationships. You deserve the boundaries to say no thank you to what drains you. Dov Baron, FullMontyLeadership.com. Stay curious about the quality of the relationships you are having.